That's what you prefer. Yeah. Why do you prefer? I was kind of like grilling him on why he likes it better. And then we walk over, all resolved that, okay, so this is clearly Scott, we got the thing that's going to be better for him. And when he saw what it was, he's like, verbatim, he says, you guys just don't get it. I'll make you another mouthpiece, blah, 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 blah. But you guys just don't get it was pretty insulting.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Louis Dalswell podcast. I have an amazing guest today, Mr. Adam Rapa. We recorded this back in September last year, so it's been quite a while. I just haven't got around to uploading it for you all. So, I just wanted to get it out this week, and I hope you all enjoy my amazing conversation with the great Adam Rapa. I cold called you a couple months ago to find out about your journey and about who you are, because in the trumpet world, I would say that you are, at least the perception is, you're not in any box. You travel around different continents, different countries, You now make trumpets as part of your living. And I'm just interested about how all this came about, why it's the way that it is. And I guess I just want to know, who is Adam Rapa?
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. You know what? Rolling with the concept of there being a multiverse, I don't feel like this is my primary timeline. I feel like my existence is some kind of strange divergence, and it probably should have gone some other way, or would have, or easily could have gone any number of ways, which would have actually led to, I don't know, fame and fortune or something like that. Like all the other guys that are sort of in my weight class typically all have a lot more money than me, for instance, or have been living in one place for more than 3 freaking years in their adult life. I've sort of, it started when I left Boston in a good solid career in just playing sessions, doing whatever, doing everything possible.
How old were you at this point?
I left when I was 21.
Cool.
So I had a good 5-6 years when from the time I was a freshman in high school. I was gigging. I was really gigging. And
did you study at college or anything?
Under the table, sort of. Phil Wilson brought me in to play in the Rainbow Band at Berkeley, and I was one of the elite big bands, and I was playing next to Avishai Cohen, Rashawn, those cats.
Oh, nice.
And I was 15. It was I was just lucky, right place, right time. There was a lead player there, apparently. I don't know who it was, but they dropped out in the middle of the semester and left a vacuum. And I had just done the Grammy Band thing, which was run by Phil Wilson, directed, and so he brought me in to play in his band, and then I started playing in other big bands, Ben Elkin's band, and all of a sudden I found myself really playing with the cats next to Jeremy Pelt and all them. So it was amazing. So I feel like I did go to school, and I went to the bookstore and I bought the books, the curriculums that I was interested in, but never, I turned down a scholarship, didn't want to go. It didn't finish high school, which is a whole other story that we could spend an hour talking about that. But it was very unfair. The educational system that I was a part of failed me, and my mom was wise enough to know that I didn't need that, and that it was getting in the way. So I was a gigging trumpet player. I had held down a part-time job during the day, whatever, sales. And, but I was gigging every night of the week.
You learned sales?
Yeah, I was just like retail stuff, and or some telefundraising or whatever.
Interesting. Maybe we'll come back to that.
I'm talking to people. Like, what do we started this talking about microphones, and it's not like I'm trying to sell stuff for.
No. But
it just naturally happens if I'm excited about something. It's very easy for me to share.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
That's really interesting, though. But carry on, sorry.
No. So I had a career in Boston, and I left to go join Blast. They headhunted me from my reputation in drum corps, and and then I was off, and I stayed with Blast for 7 years. For the first 3.5 years, it was solid. I was living on the road. And then after that, it was kind of seasonal, half on, half off. And in the off season, during those years I was living in Seattle. My girlfriend had a gig there, and so I said, okay, I'll go to Seattle. And then after that, it was a couple of years in New York, and after I left Blast, and in a couple of years in Vienna, and a couple of years in Denmark, and 1 year in Belgium, and a few years in the Netherlands, and now I've been here in Spain for a few years. So it's always just been, I've let love lead the way mostly.
Okay.
Because my career is so very much run from the airport that I really, if my partner has roots someplace, I've been able to make that work. You know, and
Nice.
so in a way, haven't chosen to just plant myself and like go to LA, dig in, or New York and like do it. It just never called to me. So I just thought, and also I got pretty worried after the crash of 2008 in the States, when a whole bunch of my guest clinician, guest artist gigs dried up. And when it came back, it didn't really, I mean, maybe it's back now, but that money didn't come back for quite a few years. And I found myself doing more gigs in Japan, more gigs in Europe, and just decided to settle in Europe. First attempt was in Vienna, and that didn't work out. And then I went to Denmark, and that was cool for a little while. I was playing lead and solos in the Danish radio big band. I was playing with Gerard Presenser, and that was nice. Wonderful. So it was a wonderful time in a way, but it also wasn't the place for me. And then more floating. So I don't know. I feel really, really transient, and haven't. And even Lotus wasn't supposed to. It wasn't part of my game plan. I wasn't planning on, being the CEO of a company. It was just because Dave Monette failed to give me what I needed through dogma and nothing else. And so I just needed to go and do the R&D necessary in order to figure out what it was that would scratch my itches. And the R&D part is actually fun. That's the only thing that is fun. The rest of Lotus is just shoveling a whole bunch of shit that I have no desire to do. me and my team eat a whole lot of shit, for the cause. But I'm glad that it exists because I'm playing on better gear than I've ever played on before, and the R&D thing really is where my heart is at. But yeah, so I don't know how to really eloquently describe it, but I just feel like everybody I know, close friends or more distant acquaintances, wonder like, what are you doing, man? Like, where are you? What are you doing? What's going on? You're an enigma. And I just can't commit to anything, to any particular genre of music. And or anything, one day I'm just like shedding the hell out, listening a lot to, say, Chris Potter and Gonzalo Rubalcaba just came out with a new album. And, so I've been absorbing that. But then the next day I'll be back into listening to Dvorak and trying to figure out, wait, maybe I can, I could arrange this for a trio, and I am too, maybe the thing that has defined this timeline for me is ADD. Right. I'm just bouncing around like a pinball with whatever happens to be the thing most inspiring to me at any given moment. So it's hard to get things over the finish line. I've got a lot of projects that are partially done, or things that I do prepare to get over the finish line, swing and a miss, or like the ensemble didn't have enough time or enough skill, and I didn't really get a good recording of it, or whatever. So I've sort of only got, as far as a recorded CV goes, just a few key opportunities that turned out really well, like a live gig that I recorded that sounded awesome, cool, or a bootleg recordings from a festival where I got to work with an ensemble comprised of the professors of the festival that sound amazing. But it's really, I haven't had any money to make any real productions, and I haven't really made any real money because I've always prioritized having free time, having my time to study. I mean, I kind of live like a philosopher in a way, and I'll come out like Keith Jarrett, come out of my hole every so often, make some money, and that's enough. As long as my overhead is covered, I'm good. Leave me alone. Let me go study. So it's left me with very little to show for my years and my effort. But man, if you could see how many charts I've got on my computer for how many sized ensembles, and how many times I only got one chance to play that and didn't even get a good bootleg or whatever, it's I guess even on a good day, I consider my path as, or the fruits of my labors as being sort of a tragic tale more than anything. And I'm still just waiting for my ship to come in, for Lotus to earn enough for me to have a budget to do what I really want to do, or for some big ensemble or the Metropole Orchestra, somebody to call me up and say, hey, you know what? Just couldn't help but notice, but you deserve to do something with us. None of that has actually happened yet, so I'm still just in a holding pattern.
Well, you got the backlog ready anyway to go, which is cool. Yeah, I just searched the Adam Rapa album, and I just realized, do you have a studio album?
The first record that I put out,
Life on the Road.
Yeah, that was done in the studio. That's got Mike Tucker on it, who's Arturo's tenor player, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And Mike and I have been gigging together since we were 14. We were childhood, practice partners. It was awesome.
It's weird when you see 2006, 2007. That's quite a long time ago now when you think about it. But that is right just before the crash, so I can see how that may have, the change may have would have taken. I
had far higher expectations of how my career would go, and armed with the knowledge of, the ascent that Lee Morgan had, or Clifford, or whoever, it's like, well, shit, I'm doing my part. I'm playing my butt off. Like somebody's going to call me. There was a moment in 2007 when I really thought, okay, this is it, because Gordon Goodwin did the Big Phat contest.
I love that recording, by the way. That was one of the first times I heard you play. I remember when it came out, and I thought, who on earth is this guy? Yeah, and then I saw the Monette videos and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I only found out about it at the beginning of the final week of the contest. A friend
was it on like the bonus CD or something?
That was the thing. So he built DVD? So the contest, the winners of the contest were going to be featured on the next recording of the Big Phat Band, and I thought, so I was in the middle of rehearsing a theater show, a blast category theater show that I had composed in Japan. So I had to take a break and say, all right, I'll be back in a couple hours, go into my hotel room and set up my M box, generation 1 and a crappy mic in my closet and try to finagle something. I just banged it out in record time. It took me way more time to set up and get my sound than it did to record the solo. Nice. And it just skyrocketed with votes, and I won the last week. And then Gordon and Wayne chose my solo as the winning solo. And I thought, okay, well, this is it. I guess I'm going to LA. Woohoo! and I had known Wayne for a few years and just could see what a lovely person he was. And I figured, well, this is the perfect indoor. And I mean, I guess we're going to be playing together soon anyway. So, all right. So LA, let's do it, baby. But no, those recordings that we made were were buried at the back of the DVD that was associated with the next album that they recorded. So it wasn't
I'm obviously a Gordon Goodwin mega fan, so I had all of that stuff. So I got a chance to see it, which was awesome. But
they're amazing.
Why is that not available on YouTube? By the way, I know it's a long time ago and whatnot.
Well, I didn't record a video.
Yeah, but I just mean even recording it. I thought about it the other day. I thought about that recording. It was amazing. I remember. I don't know, but I don't know how I'd find it now.
Do you look to YouTube for audio
nowadays? Yeah.
Oh crap! Well, I guess I need to publish a bunch of stuff at my backlog, because
people don't listen to music anymore. They watch it.
It's so weird. Well, it's free, so I guess. Are there commercials when you listen to music on YouTube?
Well, unless you have YouTube Premium, yeah.
Well, I just listen to Tidal. I mean,
I mainly don't listen to music on YouTube. I don't go on YouTube, but I will search on YouTube to find something that's archivey. Because releasing something on Spotify or Tidal, there's always friction, and it has to be official. Whereas on YouTube you get bootlegs and and you don't have to have album artwork or whatnot. You can just upload it. But I find that that's where I would search first. I think it's probably the biggest source of material.
I'll take that. Because everything's just on my website, but I don't know that anybody goes to
it's funny website. If I wanted to go and listen to you play, I wouldn't go on your website. I would go to YouTube. And that's not that's just what's going on in my brain. It's not right, wrong.
And there's
maybe I should
so
go on your
much
website.
garbage on YouTube. For me, like there's just blackmail footage galore, or just bootlegs that I never would have chosen to publish. But all the good stuff is on my website. It's curated. It's like,
Yeah, well, that's one of the things when you start to put stuff on the internet, or you go and do gigs, and now you walk out and there's 150 iPhones in your face with the flash on, and we play an instrument that is particularly unforgiving. That's just what happens. There's plenty of crap on YouTube of me, but whatever. I just try and keep going, do my best I can, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
but it's the way I'm trying to look at it.
It's a double-edged sword. It has really benefited me on a couple of occasions. There was one gig I was so angry before I went on stage, and I went out and played Song for Jozak and just slaughtered it. I mean, I was playing on my 4-valve Monette, which has a flumpet bell, and with a lead mouthpiece that you could shove a pencil down the throat, and I still was screaming up to double B. It was really somebody bootlegged it and put it out there, and it's definitely got I don't know if all the iterations of that video have maybe hit 1 million views or something. They're not my views, but somebody put it out there, and thank goodness. And then somebody just a few years ago put a transcription under the video, published it and all that. So it has its benefits, the whole bootleg culture. But at the same time, more times than not, there's stuff that's like, what, you should have just let that die. I'm not hardcore like Keith Jarrett about like, no, just let it exist in the moment and don't, I like to have recordings, but I'd like to be choosing, I'm like you, I'm a producer at heart, and I would rather curate what you get to see, but well, you can't have it.
Yeah, I think the world is way more public than any of us want it to be now, and that's part of the problem. But and putting your head above the parapet now is more dangerous than it's ever been, for this exact stuff, but it just requires courage, I guess, which I think you have plenty of. So I have a few things here that I've got written down just from the last few things we said, and I want to make sure I do them in order. So, okay, so you've talked about this ideal career that you thought you were going to have. Can maybe you go into what / if you ever had a plan about what you thought it would be, and how and what things you found surprising along the way? Like, when you were 21 years old, what did you think things were going to go? I'm only asking this because you said that it didn't go the way that you had thought.
Well, I can't remember which year Winton took the helm of Lincoln Center, but I think it was that long enough ago that it was that I mean, it's certainly at some point I integrated that and just said like, oh my God, look what this man has done. He's built an institution. Well, he didn't create it, but he built it up to something, spectacular. And
artistic director in 1991.
90. Oh, yeah. So exactly.
Before I was born. Yeah.
From the get-go. That was 91 was the same year I was 11. And I wrote a paper saying that I was going to be it was like the classic, what are you going to do when you grow up thing. And I wrote a paper saying I was going to be the principal trumpet in the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Because I had gone every year to see the Nutcracker there and, got to hear, that, and of course it's very impactful, but shortly thereafter I joined drum corps, and then I heard like Bill Chase and Maynard and okay, and also Lee Morgan, Clifford, Freddie, Dizzy, and I just realized like, okay, well, the buffet is a lot bigger than I thought, and my teacher was also pretty diverse. He was able to play. He was a great improviser and a monster lead player, and could play some classical music and all that. So I saw from the very beginning that being well-rounded is the name of the game. And in Boston, there were so many opportunities, such a diverse array of opportunities for types of music to play, types of ensembles to play in. So I knew that I wanted to get my hands dirty in lots of different areas, but I've always wanted to produce. I've always wanted to make my own stuff and have an ensemble or my own band, which has just never come to pass because of the combination of my locational transience, if you will, and just not having money. Like, Frank Zappa would hire a band for 6 months of rehearsals and then launch the project. I get like, a rehearsal, maybe two, with a band who it's like, hi, my name is, and all right, let's go. So that's always been a huge disappointment. But yeah, I guess my plan would be to have a similar CV to Winton, really. I just admire how much he's dedicated his life to just artistic output, into compositions, and beyond that, all the other altruistic things that, the Weebop, the young kids outreach program. It's just, I'm amazed.
The kingdom,
by what
right?
he's able to accomplish. Yeah. And I mean, I don't need to. I guess I would feel a little bit like a megalomaniac if I said I'll settle for nothing less than all of that, but just a smidge, or like to be like Vince Mendoza and have the Metropole at my disposal to make one recording every year or something like. I'd even be satisfied with that, or when Lotus gets built up enough that we can start really being philanthropic and just give away a lot more stuff. I would very much love to do that. And I am close to launching an educational program, which I plan, if it goes well, that'll allow me to be really philanthropic as well. So,
well,
we'll see.
That sounds lovely. That's wicked. Cool. So maybe going slightly trumpety here, just because I'm intrigued. I've got a couple of notes I've written just as you've been talking. And they're all related. I've got, what did you not get from Monette? So what made you go? I've also, when I was a kid, I'll ask all of them at the same time, and you'll probably accumulate. I remember thinking when Lotus came out, I thought, big fan of Adam Rapa's playing. I was a little more skeptical back then anyway, just as a person in general. I thought, what is he looking for in a trumpet? That interested me even more than how the trumpet played. What is Adam looking for in a trumpet, and why? And I guess that kind of goes into the Monette question I just asked. I've got big throat written here because I want to hear your take specific on
throat sizes,
and what you think that does to you. And then also I've got written here sales job, and how you think that your sales job as a kid has helped you know how to serve people better.
Yeah, cool. All right. Everything except for that last one can definitely be meshed together. From Monette, it's just bizarre. I feel like he just self-owned, our relationship. It's just like he ruined it for no good reason. And it was throat size. That was it. Huh. What I was looking for in a trumpet, what led me to Monette, I'll just back up. So I was on tour with Blast and we played in Portland. I went to the shop. He wasn't there that day, but I left with a mouthpiece, a very shallow mouthpiece. I left with a screamer piece, and it was killing. And it was no adjustment period required. I took it on stage that night and slaughtered Malagueña. And so that was fun. And that went on for a little while longer. Then I had some other opportunity to try mouthpieces. I think I maybe ordered another one from Mike Thompson, a B3S or something like that, and was really really vibing with how much. But in Blast we were forced to play on Yamahas. So, and I, whatever, everything is, we're in a subjective world. So, I'm not trying to sling mud or anything, but I've never been satisfied with the amount of sound and character that I could get out of a Yamaha. So, but there I was for 7 years needing to play one on stage. And I found that with the Monette Prana mouthpieces, that just gave an extra breadth of sound. It opened up another dimension of tone color and projection. So, I was definitely on board with the Monette mouthpieces, and I didn't find any problem with the throat sizes. So that I think back in the day I was playing somewhere between a 21 and a 19 on regular trumpets. And then I visited the shop. The next time I went to the shop, Dave was there, and he was quite smitten with my playing. And a few other people were there too. I think it might have even been, at least very early on. I remember, I don't know if it was the first at the time I was there or not, but Charlie Schluter was there. Lots of folks were there, and everybody's like, "Man, you got to get this guy on a horn. You got to get this guy on a horn." And so eventually that happened. My mom passed away in 2006, and with her a bit of her life insurance money, which wasn't much, but it was enough to buy myself a Monette trumpet. He, to his credit, he gave me a friends and family discount. But I got a P3 that was slightly modified. I'm guessing it was just a thinner gauge of the bell, and that was, I mean, I loved the massive projection that I got from that, because I was coming from drum corps. I played on a Canstel G bugle for 7 years, like 472 bore, just a friggin' beast, a big conical monster. And I was very accustomed to, even on a shallow mouthpiece, just just having this size of sound that, then when I get to playing on a B flat trumpet in general, I already felt like this is the sound that I was getting. And in a Yamaha, it was even smaller. So I really wanted to get back to that big thing, but to have also good intonation and other more pleasant playing qualities. I had to really wrestle that beast of a G bugle into submission, and get Jim Becker at Osmond back in the day to tweak it out and try to make it a little bit more of a proper horn, which I guess he was successful. It really, mine was better than any others that I tried. So I was always tweaking the things and learning from cats, especially Jim Becker, who was really generous with his knowledge, and so I was always sort of technically minded, because I spent most of my time playing 12-hour rehearsals on a disgusting piece of shit instrument. But there was something alluring about it nonetheless, the projection, the width of the sound, and that breadth, and so I was chasing that on my B flat, and never really found it until I played on this Monette P3, and but it was a bit of a double-edged sword, because it came along with mouthpieces that had enormous throats, and I could handle it. I mean, I'm stronger than the average bear, and I figured, okay, so since I can handle it, I guess that's my cross to bear, and I guess it's necessary in order to have that kind of sound. And I really suffered a very masochistic few years on that, and shortly thereafter, I got I got bit by the bug listening to Nikaryakov play 4-valve flugel, and just fell in love with all of the non-trumpet literature that he was playing on the 4-valve, things for cello, things for French horn, and I told Monette, very quickly after I got my P3s, that the next horn I get from you is going to be a 4-valve. He's like, why would you want 4 valves? It's like, why wouldn't you want 4 valves? All the extra notes. Are you kidding? Like, why should we stop at F sharp? A clarinet, all you need is E, or an alto saxophone. All you need is an E flat. Like, and then you've got access to this whole other world of literature, of solos, to be able to actually play cannonball solos or bird solos and play, or Kenny Garrett, who I was really into since Sing a Song of Song came out, that album. It was just like 94. So I've been singing along with and wanting to play and playing along with alto saxes for a really long time. So anyway, coming back to it, I told Monette I want a 4-valve trumpet, and I guess that just really struck a chord with him, and he got really into it and started really thinking about it. And shortly thereafter, here I was with a 4-valve trumpet, and I'd sort of made my bed and figured, okay, now I have to lie in it. So I was mostly playing that horn, and I actually sold the P3 to an acquaintance, and so I was left with nothing but this 4-valve beast with a flumpet bell, thinner gauge, but still, a monster. Yeah. And then next thing you know, I'm in Denmark, and my gig is to play a lead in the Danish radio big band. So it didn't work. It wasn't working, and I was asking Monette for years, just give me. I need a new horn. I need something that, I need a screamer, and I absolutely need more resistance. Like I need a mouthpiece with a tighter throat. And I was living in Seattle for those years, and so I visited the shop plenty of times. He's like, okay, come on, we'll make you something. But it just the bite just kept getting sharper, and the throats never got any tighter. And it was just, I'll make you a mouthpiece. And we sat together. I mean, I learned quite a bit about what he thinks is important in making a mouthpiece. And he's, in my opinion, he's definitely got some blind spots, but whatever. He's got a very fully formed dogma and that's led him to have an original contribution to the world. So I can't not knocking it, but all subjectivity and all. But for me, I just knew it was really obvious. And one day at the kind of when the love felt, that moment when a lover, you just realize like, this is not the partner for me. I got to go. That the day that happened, I was in his shop, and it was like a gathering, an anniversary of some sort or whatever. And another great player was there who was having the same problem, was saying like, man, I just can't get over my drummer. Like if he's having a bad day and he's smashing the cymbals, like I got nothing. I feel like this is all, my sound, and I need some sparkle. I need to be able to, and it's like, man, you too, you're in the same boat. You need more resistance, brother. You need something to be able to push against. And so I took, he was also on a P3. I took a regular STC1 mouthpiece made for regular trumpets, the shank size, and I just put some tape around it till it would shank more or less with a good realistic gap into the P3. And he played it and he was like, yes, sold. That's exactly what, obviously that's what it is. And so we brought Dave in the room. Dave and I went, he does that thing, films people from like the back of the other side of his shop. So Dave and I went over there and listened to the AB, and Dave himself chose the regular STC1 mouthpiece taped and stuffed into the P3. And we were both in agreement, and I knew I could tell exactly which one was which. And so I was like, really? So that's what you prefer? Yeah. Why do you prefer? I was kind of like grilling him on why he likes it better. And then we walk over, all resolved that, okay, so this is clearly Scott, we got the thing that's going to be better for him. And when he saw what it was, he's like, verbatim, he says, you guys just don't get it. I'll make you another mouthpiece, blah, 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 blah. But you guys just don't get it was pretty fucking insulting. Sorry, you're going to have to bleep.
We have an explicit tag on this. It's all good.
Man, you have got to know that I know more than you about what I need. Like that has to be built into the humility of every single player, teacher, instrument maker on the planet. Like you and I have spent some time together, play testing mouthpieces at Phil Parker's, and I knew that your mouthpiece was better for you than anything that we had on our menu. I heard it, you felt it, and it was like, okay, cool. Well, I wish that I had the thing that would, sound better for you, and I wish I had the resources to make it, because after that session that we had, I knew exactly what it was that needed to change with the mouthpiece that was closest, but I don't have the resources and couldn't give it to you. So, all right. Good on you. I'm glad you got something that you like, but to be told like, no, what the thing, what your problem is? You don't know what you need. I know what you need. It's like, come on, give me a fucking break.
Well,
So,
I have a question for that, because I've done a lot of testing of things too. And there is a line, because it seems to be, I don't know where it is exactly, but you have to believe that you know what you need. And if you don't, I'm not saying that Dave sensed this at all, but I've certainly been lost in playing sessions. Acoustics have got are different. I'm confused. I've tried loads of instruments. My chops are like, where are we? I'm tired. Am I tired? Am I not tired? Maybe this is a good opportunity to ask, like, how do you know what you need? And when testing, how do you look out for yourself? Like, how do you not get in trouble testing? Yeah.
Well, I think the starting point is that I am about as close to a cyborg as it gets in terms of playing. Like the I don't even know. I don't think I had hair under my armpits when I hit my 10,000 hours. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
And from there, I've gathered many more tens of thousands of hours, and I know exactly what I'm doing. Due to the fact that I have a pretty serious learning disability, and so I need to break everything down to goo goo gaga and rep the hell out of basics. Even still to this day, I rep basics. That's what I do. I don't, if I've got 2 hours, I'm not playing an hour and a half of music and a half hour of basics. I'm playing an hour and a half of basics and a half hour of music, you know? So in general, like I've trained my muscle memory so well that there's only one way that I do things. There's only one way that I play. I've got specific places that I put my tongue for specific notes. You know what I mean? Like I know exactly what I'm doing. I've had to break it down. I've had to analyze and optimize every part of my playing, and so there's no such thing as a bad day. You know, there really isn't. I'm only, you can be aware of the consequences of the choices that you made yesterday. You know, the fact that you didn't warm up or warm down and played too hard or whatever, or even taking fault out of it, just saying like, man, I had a hard session yesterday. I had to play super loud and super high all day. And now today I feel that tension and that swelling and the whatever in my chops. And I know that today, if I were asked to do the same gig, I'd feel like crap about it. So what I'm going to do is play really soft and do something to counterbalance what happened yesterday. You know, all of those things, I'm aware of all of that. You know, like I can troubleshoot any problem that comes up. I mean, I played over 2,000 shows with Blast, and that was playing my ass off and dancing and doing crazy choreography and jumping on trampolines and you know, climbing through an aluminum framework jungle gym while playing, you know, like a sultry jazz ballad. Like they asked me to do all kinds of stupid shit, and it was great. And I can play one-handed just as easily as with two, and the whole thing, you know. So I've just gotten so many hours and so much repetition. Oh, I see that my microphone has changed. Did your sound of me change right now on your end?
Yes, a little.
Yeah, now it's coming through my computer. So for some reason, I think just the cable is whack. Let me
remember where you're at. We'll edit.
Yeah. Come back, baby. Come back to me. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
I don't actually know how far we are into recording.
Check microphone. Okay. Thunderbolt microphone. Good. Back. So they asked me to do a whole bunch of crazy shit in Blast, and I had to become efficient enough in using my body so that my manner of playing wasn't detrimental to my endurance or my sound. It happened again. What a pain in the ass. Hold on a sec.
All good. You're on a roll, man. There's all good stuff. People are gonna like this.
It's gonna be a saucy podcast.
Oh, it is. I appreciate your honesty. I haven't said that yet on the pod.
Has changed to Thunderbolt. Okay,
good.
Yeah. Punch point 3. So they asked me to do a lot of crazy shit in Blast, and in order to do it, I had to be very efficient. I couldn't rely on inward pressure to take the sound of movement out of my sound. You know, like the movement of feet, and I had to, you know, develop a fatter embouchure than I, you know, and this goes, I guess, predates Blast. This was starting in drum corps. Learning to take your feet out of the sound is, you know, get the mouthpiece away from your teeth, elongate the chops, you know, give yourself a good.
Does that make you a better player?
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. God. Yeah. I mean, inward pressure is the devil. You know, you don't want to play an entire gig with someone with their hands wrapped around your throat, because that'll cut off oxygen to your head, and that's stupid. Likewise, you don't want to have, you know, something cutting off the blood flow to your chops, and they'll become non-responsive, and the problem accumulates over time, and just response is nothing like it would be if you had a healthy relationship to creating a hermetic seal with the mouthpiece on your face. So I had eliminated that in order to be able to dance and do all kinds of crazy things. And so I guess just this is all just preamble to the conversation we were having before. I there are no questions in my world about what it is that I'm doing. I'm fully consciously aware of what I'm doing, and consciously aware of how I would prefer to feel while I'm playing, which is to be so effortless that I can jump around, dance around, and act a fool one-handed while I'm playing. I want it to feel that easy. I don't want there to be tension in my body. I want it to be a breeze. And I've cultivated that painstakingly with lots and lots of hours playing shirtless in front of a mirror, getting my job done, and so to have somebody tell me after I've clearly proved in a blind A/B taste test which one works better for me, to after that be told, yeah, but no, you're mistaken. Like, there's a better path to get you to where I think you want to go. It's like, I know exactly what I want. And I know that playing a didgeridoo for a throat is not going to help get me there,
Right.
So
let's go to throat then. Talk to me, benefits and cons to big throat, what this whole short shank, big throat idea is, all that stuff. Give it
short shank, big throat.
Well, it's the Lotus mouthpieces is shorter, right? Like if I compare it to a GR is a lot longer.
Yeah, GRs are a lot longer, and they're notoriously compressed in the harmonic series. So you have to program your own personal muscle memory to move the low notes down and move the high notes up, or do what Conrad Gozzo did, which is just make the upper register in tune and say sayonara to the bottom register.
And just the bottom register goes. Which way does it go if you make the upper register in tune?
Everything compresses towards the middle. So if your middle C is in tune, your high C is going to be flat and your low C is going to be sharp.
Yeah.
That's the reality that you are dealing with, and almost everybody else is dealing with. Monette came along with an elegant solution to the problem, which part of the equation meant making the mouthpiece shorter, where one of Monette's blind spots falls is that all of his mouthpieces are the same length. And after the cup, you've only got so much real estate, and then he's got simple straight tapers for backbores. As far as I'm aware, I haven't paid attention to what he's been doing in the last 10 years, but 8 years. But I highly doubt that he's gone away from that. They're all just straight tapers. So you choose how long you want that taper to be, how aggressive you want that taper to be, and how much throat that leaves after the cup. So you've got cup, throat, and the rest of the back bore. If the length is a constant and not a variable, and the cup is, well, for any given cup, that's a constant. You can't change it because you want to put a C cup on there, say. Then the only decision is which of my straight tapers am I going to stick in there, which will determine how aggressive that taper is and how much throat that's going to leave. And so he does his best to make every note or to make the harmonic series in tune with.
How do you measure that? How do you measure it?
The harmonics. Yeah, that's a play tester thing, and so he's not a trumpet player. He's got a couple of things on his fingers that he does for his purposes of play testing, and then he'll hand it to a player, and the player.
So I guess this is where the skepticism comes from people. And let me just write it down because I want to know what this is all about. Yeah. I've tried those other mouthpieces. I've been told by other manufacturers this kind of thing, and yet, and this is hold my hands up and say that this is how would I say it? Like a flaw in my own playing. That when I go high, I'll go sharp. When I go low, I'll go flat.
Yeah, that sounds like overcompensation. A lot of people, it's like if you need to program some kind of compensation into your body to move.
Yeah, but define compensation. Like define it, because for me, when I play a high C, I tell you, it feels like this, right? It feels bang. That's a high C.
Yeah.
There's compensation, and something I tell my members all the time in my academy is that it feels as though professionals, or at least the best players, are the ones who are best at manipulating just the trumpet in general to get the sound that they need out of it.
Yep.
Like, what am I missing out on? That's the question. What am I not getting with my current setup that I could get on a more quote unquote efficient setup? And why, even on my mouthpiece that apparently the upper register goes flat, I still go sharp sometimes. and the bottom register goes flat,
Yep.
even when it's supposed to go sharp. So
Right.
what am I doing wrong?
So there are a couple of well, you're not doing anything wrong. You're dealing with the interface, the mouthpiece that you've chosen for the horn, and the relationship between us and the mouthpiece is far more important than the horn. The horn's I've said this a million times, but I'll say it again, is a fancy piece of plumbing that's an amplifier. Yeah. But really, the impetus of the sound of what we're creating, it's between us and the mouthpiece. So the mouthpiece is really the interface, and there are a couple of tracks. You asked, what am I not getting? One is a sound thing, and that's all subjective. So you're choosing a mouthpiece based on the kind of sound that you get, and
just in my mind.
Yeah, and if you're satisfied with that sound, then great. A lot of times people settle for a sound because they don't know any, because they haven't heard any better.
They can't imagine a better sound. Yeah,
sure,
I get you. Yeah.
Exactly. The other thing is feel. How easy does it feel for me to achieve upper register access, clarity of articulation, smoothness of transition between notes? There are a lot of things that you can ask for a mouthpiece to give you, and a lot of people, I think, don't blame the equipment. And see, okay, so it's catch-22. If you are as conscious about everything that you're doing when you play as I am, I'm not sure that's common. The level of conscious awareness that I bring to trumpet playing, to the use of my body is extremely high. It's like master meditation level awareness of self and the results, the cause and effect of every little thing that I do to change that. If that's the case, then you can objectively judge the results of the mouthpiece. Once you've already corrected for, well, I know that I can get it to play in tune, or I can get that range, or I can get out of this mouthpiece what I want, but it costs me extra, I need to, it requires extra force. The upper register, I won't play in tune until I use a little bit of extra pressure, or squeeze down a little bit more, go faster with my air. There are lots of ways that we can manipulate pitch. The most common example that I can use to get people to feel what I'm talking about is when they play with slow air. Just play with slow, lazy air, and play with a tuner. And they play, just like, la da 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 da. They're writing songs of love, but not for me. And they get in tune at that place. And I say, now play strong and with fast air. Imagine a laser beam coming out of your horn, and all of a sudden they're 20-25 cents sharp.
Yeah.
So the speed of air is I think the healthiest knob that you can turn in order to affect your intonation. And I am very mindful of how much I'm compressing my air and what it feels like to do that. So, and I'm a bit of a priss in terms of not wanting to do the stuff that I did when I was a kid in drum corps, not wanting it to be a barbaric game of force. I want it to be always like I had to cultivate in order to survive in blast, which is be totally loosey goosey and still be able to, I don't want to work hard. I want I want it to feel like a saxophone player or a pianist, and not one that's working towards carpal tunnel. I want that ease. I demand it. So when I find that a mouthpiece requires that I make some kind of adjustment in order to compensate to get the intonation where it needs to be, that's a demerit on towards my choice of playing on that mouthpiece or not. The most common thing, the reason why people who play on mouthpieces that have compressed harmonic series, and that is to say almost all the mouthpieces out there are exceptions, but the big ones, the Bach and all the other mouthpieces that typically, I haven't found any mouthpieces that are as long as those mouthpieces are that actually do have true equal tempered octaves when I play them without my making any kind of compensation. It gets really, it's a deep rabbit hole in terms of how to make a mouthpiece perfectly in tune. There was a patent from a really long time ago that contradicts Monette's equation for how to make a mouthpiece, which is the shallower the cup, the longer the mouthpiece should be, and the deeper the cup, the shorter the mouthpiece should be, in order to get you at least in the ballpark of intonation. And then, of course, what you do inside of the throat and back bore will be the final determining factor. But starting out with a particular length that's at least in the ballpark is pretty necessary. And there's the old anecdote about the mouthpieces originally having been primarily for trumpets in A, and the length of a Bach mouthpiece, for instance, is great for playing in A, but it's too long for playing in B flat. But copycats up until 2025 are still going with the length, are defining the length of the mouthpiece as a constant and not a variable in the equation, because tradition. And I think that kind of falls in line with the way that pedagogy is passed on like religion, not like science. And so I think it's a tremendous mistake to call the length of the mouthpiece a constant and not a variable. All of the mouthpieces in my menu have different lengths, which correspond to the depth of cup and the particular length of backbore and length of throat that I was going for. So there's there's a bit of trial and error involved in every mouthpiece that we make, because I don't know what the right length for the mouthpiece is until we've already turned over enough stones.
So I'm a guy who's much more interested in truth than dogma. But I do want to know, is this a true statement? Those mouthpieces are designed to be in equal temperament or equal octaves for the way that Adam Rapa plays.
No, there's
an objective thing about this.
There is objectivity and you can measure that. There's software and hardware designed by acoustic physicists to objectively measure the intonation of an instrument. You can't measure just the intonation of a mouthpiece, but then you put it into the instrument, and if you know already what the intonation characteristics are of a horn, then you'll see that this horn plus this mouthpiece now equals this kind of intonation response. Now you know exactly what is the result of the mouthpiece.
So for me, I have to manipulate dramatically to pull the upper register down. I feel like I have to make a huge manipulation to flatten it. That's what it feels like for me. Massive. Like I have to open and
now,
what am I doing wrong?
Relative to what does your low C feel like? It feels like it's too low, and you have to lift it up, or
quite often, yeah. It's very strange.
It may very well be that your mouthpiece. I mean, it's very easy to do. It's easy to make a mouthpiece with a compressed harmonic series. It's easy to make a mouthpiece with an over expanded relationship between the harmonics, and it's really freaking hard to make to get right there. But it took many years after I started this that I actually had access to the hardware and software for measuring acoustic physics of the instrument and the mouthpieces. So in the beginning, it was really just I depended on my own playtesting to be truly cyborg. Like, I'm not given any extra juice in the upper register. I'm not going in the low register to bring down the low C. I'm trying to be absolutely as much of a constant in the equation as I can possibly be. And I got remarkably close already. It took a little while. In the beginning, coming off of Monette, I was accustomed to a very wide spread in the harmonic series. And also I was accustomed to playing on an overtly large throat. So my taste took a little while to like settle down into something that's more indicative of where most players are at. So I'm a recovering addict of the oversized everything, whatever. And anyway, so in all of my experimentation with designing mouthpieces, I've definitely observed mouthpiece, like, oh no, that the high C is still flat, or sometimes also it's like, oh no, okay, we're always talking relative to the middle C. Yep, now it's too far. We've gone too far. We went too far in. Now, so there is a sweet spot that you got to hit, and it's tricky because if you're only making adjustments for intonation, it's not that hard to do. You can very quickly say, okay, well, now we need to do this. I don't want to show too many of my cards because,
I understand.
But as far as how to make a mouthpiece play perfectly in tune, but it's very easy to say that what it takes to change the intonation is also going to change some other playing factor. Maybe you're going to change the length of the throat. Maybe something else changes in terms of the volume inside of the backbore. And maybe you don't like that as much. You like how it played before, but that also came with, faulty intonation. So it's
always a compromise. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Every mouthpiece is a compromise. Everything.
It's what you want to compromise on.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a perfect instrument or mouthpiece or anything, but it's just, what are your priorities? What are your highest priorities? And then you got to choose.
So what do you say about Conrad Gozzo would tune his trumpet to the upper register, and then
I've been told that he made it so that from middle C was essentially his low C.
Okay.
Made it the upper registers in tune, but then if there were ever a unison line going down into the staff, he would just lay out.
Why? Because he would be sharp.
Oh, sharp as hell, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you pull the tuning slide in so far that a compressed harmonic series moves, you move the entire series up so that high C is in tune. Now, even middle C is a bit sharp, and low C is,
Yeah. Okay. So why do I play better? Why do I play the trumpet better when my tuning slide is further out? And I hear some amazing players with long tuning slides out. I try and pull it in, and I play worse.
It totally depends. I mean, it's a juggling act of so many different variables, right? I think we need to look at it or just discuss it in terms of there being an equation and which variables, which factors are involved. It may be that you just really benefit from having a larger gap of bigger bore there, because as soon as
I wondered about this. Why has no one made an instrument where, like, I really want to try this one day. Maybe Lotus can do it. Where the bell is shortened, but the lead pipe is really long.
I don't know that hasn't been done. I think there's so much. They did everything in the 1800s. Like you find time capsuled instruments from the late 19th century that are amazing, so much better than trumpets today, because they weren't mass produced. They were all handcrafted, artisanally, made. And just Adolf Sachs alone did so much experimentation. Or then Kahn back, I think up until, like, say, the 50s, including, were doing wild experiments. So I don't know what has and hasn't been done. I kind of feel like there's nothing new under the sun. It's just maybe some really good ideas didn't get their due credit at the time because the play tester, particular bias built in, didn't recognize, or it's like, and lots of bad ideas have been recycled because it fit one particular person, and everybody else wants to play on that because they admire that person or whatever. So in the case of, this is a very ADD conversation. I'll try to.
Don't worry, I apparently have it as well. So, yeah.
But with the mouthpiece thing, so you asked about short mouthpiece, big throat. That is, I don't know. Those sound to me like two variables in an equation. Okay. But then what is the cup? The mouthpiece may be short, but is the throat? How long is the throat? And the backbore, what is that shape? How much volume is there in it? Is it short and has a narrow backbore, or is it extremely open, or what? I mean, there are way more variables at play, so I have no judgment whatsoever.
Sure, I understand.
Or beyond that, I would say it's unfair and unrealistic to judge whether it's a good thing to have a short mouthpiece with an open throat without also knowing what the other variables are. And I've definitely tried a whole bunch of stuff that seemed like, yes, having a mouthpiece shorter than a Bach, certainly, or definitely more shorter than a GR, can get me quicker into the ballpark of a place where the mouthpiece can play with equal tempered octaves. Large throat, that's a very personal thing. It's how you like to interface with the horn, how much of an open blow you're looking for. And even in that, the mouthpiece, the resistance that you feel from the mouthpiece is only one point of resistance. Yeah. Then the trumpet introduces plenty of other points of resistance. So you can there are many choices to be made in terms of how you like your resistance. How much of it do you want right up at front? And then as far as the trumpet, do you want the resistance to come closer to you in the system? Would you rather have it be, really feel an extra bit of pushback at the lead pipe? Would you rather blow right through it? I'm sorry, tuning slide. Or would you rather blow right through the valves and feel the resistance more at the bell end? And so, there's a lot of variables there. And one thing that defines how I like to play the horn is that I don't want to feel I don't want rush hour traffic, and so I typically play a throat that's somewhere around what has been described as a symphonic, size throat. I've only done all of my work in Europe, so I don't measure things in American throat sizes. I only know metric. Okay. So throat sizes on our mouthpieces range from 3.6 millimeters to 3.9. Typically, there's one that's 4 millimeters. It's none of that is anywhere near as open as even a Monette mouthpiece made for regular trumpets, let alone the larger shank, larger throat stuff that he does for his other horns, where the mouthpieces are integrated, or larger shanks. So it's still like my tastes, and I found that the results with the people at large, fall pretty aligned in the porridge that's just right, not too small, not too large, just something right in the middle. And that's kind of the final step in every mouthpiece design that I make is, okay, we've got, I love the results of the cup. I'm loving the articulation. I'm loving the sound, the projection, everything about it. Now the question is just the fine detail of the blow feel. How open is it? And we'll make the same exact mouthpiece with different throat sizes. And of course, I'll play test them, but then the other guys on my team will play test them, and then we'll go out and have other folks play test. From like bad players, just bad play to great players, and preferably someone just in between, a pretty good player who's capable of working but doesn't have any kind of superpower that's going to be able to enable them to make it work even though it's too open, that kind of thing, which was my problem with Monette. I was just a lobster in a pot, and it just kept getting my equipment kept getting more and more open, and even though I could handle it, it was costing me a hell of a lot more. And and so
why do you think so many pros play GR? And I'm not trying to, again, just looking for the truth here. I see a lot of pros. Most people here.
My truth. It's all subjective, right? But I've noticed that the folks who play on GR mouthpieces talk about how easy it is for them to just get a sound, or how easy it is to get into the upper register, and almost all of them.
I'd say the core on a GR is different to any of like the Marcinkiewicz, Schilke sort of things.
They are their own thing. I can hear most of the time. I can identify a GR mouthpiece if I'm familiar with the trumpet that they're playing on.
Sure,
I can hear what a GR mouthpiece sounds like. And normally the pros are the ease of access, of blow, and the biggest con is the nasality of the sound, and then also intonation. They appear to be very comfortable. They seem to be very comfortable for people. I actually changed the contour of our rims to accommodate GR players, because there were so many GR players that were.
The cushion rim is amazing.
They testing our stuff and saying like, but man, that rim, I just can't get off my rim. I love everything about your mouthpiece more, but I don't want it to feel like that on my face. So we've years ago, we changed a lot of the mouthpieces to have much more surface contact, and to be able to scratch the same.
I always used to say that the Bergeron rim, or my mouthpiece rim, is a commitment, because once you're there, it's pretty hard to go back to anything else. It's so comfortable. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm not intimately familiar with how either of those feel, but I have on occasion, anytime a GR player has tried a mouthpiece and said, "Oh my God, that's great. That was the sound." But I'll say, "Well, let me play your mouth. What is it? What's the but factor?" I'll play it and like, my God, the intonation is awful and the sound is half as big, but it's very easy to play. And it feels great on the face. All right, this brings me to another question, because you mentioned that GRs have a nasal sound.
typically. I mean,
I understand. Yeah. And okay. And you said that you grew up playing G trumpets.
G bugles, yeah. Well, alongside, I did drum corps on G bugles, but then I had a Benge early on. I had a Colicchio Studio 2, not a Dominic. It was a Chris Colicchio. So I had some nice trumpets as a kid.
Yeah.
But
I'm interested in what your inner hearing projection is telling you, because so I almost hear, and I don't know whether this is right or not, but with a GR I just hear more body. Not compared to a Lotus, I haven't tested enough, but just generally compared to, when someone comes to me with, say, Marcinkovich 1.25 Bobby Shoe or something, and I give them mine, or I give them Bergerons or something like that, they're just coming out with way more core.
Well,
and
yes, I'll give you that.
Okay, no, that's fine. So we're talking on a scale here, and we're also dealing with, I've got written here, do you have a different sound concept to most players? Like, are you hearing? Is there something, most players, that's obviously way too general, but is it something, can you describe the sound that's in your head, that the nasality of, do you want, how do I say this? I want to get this right. So the word bright is really broad, nasal is bright, but it's just a different quality of bright to air.
Almost, it's not as high. So I think that you and I, both being producers, can have the conversation on a more realistic level. And
sure. Why don't you go? Have you got frequency?
EQ. Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. So nasality will typically come somewhere between, like 1K, 5K. There's a lot of in that. And then above that, then you get to all the sparkly, shiny stuff. People define a bright sound lots of different ways. One constant is that there's always lots of shiny, sparkly, 8K and up kind of stuff going on. Other people might not require it to be so sparkly, but define bright as the absence of oomph, of body, of mid-range, where there's like no 500, where like the sound starts. You look at it on a spectral analyzer and there's like nothing going on.
1.5. Yeah.
1K, so you can define also dark as the absence of brilliance, or that there's just as much shine as on a bright mouthpiece, but there's also lots more mid-range. So if you take I did a multi-tracking when I was a teenager. I didn't have a French horn. I wanted to record the French horn parts, and I used a rotary valve cornet from the late 1800s and just boosted 250 to 500 hertz roundabout, just like really bumped that. And I'll be damned if that didn't sound a hell of a lot more like a French horn. It gave you that creamy ooh quality. So much of what we're talking about as players should be discussed in terms of frequencies.
Okay, I love that. I don't speak to many people about that kind of thing. So were you hearing too much 1.5 to 3K or something on a GR for you? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, it's there's definitely that sonic, if you look at, I've never had I would love to have an objective answer, like a really good solid answer for you, but I've never simultaneously had a spectral analyzer in front of me.
I understand.
Mouthpiece.
So what's your gut tell you? Yeah. What's your gut tell you?
Yeah. Gut just tells me that there's too much in the sound.
Okay.
Right in that range, and I would like for it to either be broader, to open up and get more throaty if I'm playing, jazz or classical, or if I'm playing lead, I want less and I just want to scoop that out and have the and the e, really lots of e. I want it to really have claws to, I want to, shred people above 6K and above for sure, but I would prefer if it didn't also have a that presence.
I totally get you. That I've always hear that in like around 2K, particularly on ribbon microphones actually, which is one of the reasons I struggle with ribbon microphones so much. And one of the problems I've found is that especially in the industry over here, we mainly have GRs and Bachs, basically the general thing in the commercial world. And if you're playing in a section with GRs and Bachs, if you don't have a GR and a Bach, you get eaten up because that nasality is real. right? And actually, there are a lot of the players are going for just simply that sound. So that's why I'm asking: are you seeing more of a, if I could describe it as like for the audience here, more like a sun ray sound, where the middle of the sun, you have the rays on the outside of the sun that's kind of like the air, and you kind of got the body, but it's not. See, I always think of nasality as core, in a way. So if I say I want more core, then there's more nasality. Is that
and given the music that you play and the style, the sound that you have, that's the floor for you. Is like the is the lowest point, and then that's like the bottom. But I'm coming from loving Terence Blanchard, loving playing on a flugelhorn, there's a larger, there's more bottom beneath that. That's not the bottom level. There can be
that makes sense
in your sound. I played a Bach Vindobona for a while before I played Monette, and on my first record, Life on the Road, there's I did a whole bunch of playing on that Vindobona, including Poopy Pants Blues. You should check that out.
I'm gonna check it out afterwards. Yeah,
that's a whole lot of fun, and it's just trumpet. I just multi-tracked and made a sort of cartoonish trumpet ensemble piece, and that horn had a lot of ooh because it was extra conical and it was closer to the bugle thing, vibe that I was living in for so many years. So that had a very interesting, also it had a gold brass bell. There were some things about it. It was a cool horn out of the custom shop, far better than an off the shelf Bach for sure, especially during those years. But it lost out in other playing qualities, against the Monette one, which is why I left it and started playing on the P3, because just the size of the sound, my God, and the fact that my P3 was just ringing in my hand like a Tibetan singing bowl. You just give it a little bit of air, just and it's and you immediately get the sense that you're playing the room and that you're not just playing something inside of a room and hoping to. Just instead of paying attention to your sound right here, I'm paying attention to what does it sound like bouncing off of the back of the hall and come back at me. So my ears are wide open from being a kid playing outdoors and getting no slap back, or playing in stadiums where
getting it very late.
Exactly. And then with Blast, I was playing in theaters that sat 2,500 to 5,000 seats, and that's its own particular kind. And I'm very, very comfortable playing in that sort of setting, whether it's loud with a loud ensemble or very intimately with just a piano. I love that kind of acoustic because it's big enough to give me a sense of like, wow, there's a grandeur.
Are you looking for a horn that can do all the things you need it to do, or are you comfortable changing for different sonic qualities?
Yeah. That ties back into my being non-committal. I know that a lot of trumpet players.
I have a lot of trumpets. I'm pretty non-committal too.
Right. A lot of trumpet players talk about their sound, as if it's a singular thing. Like I don't have a sound. I treat it much more like fashion. Mouthpieces, horns, it's fashion. For right now,
I would say you were pretty instantly recognizable, but maybe that's a style thing.
Exactly, style. There are some things, the way that the way that I can gliss or do portamento from any point to any other point. There are elements in there that are easily definable as sounding like me. But in terms of the analyzation of the acoustics, or like the acoustic physics of it all, and the what's the word I'm struggling to find? Whatever the EQ, the frequency response that I'm getting from the horn, that changes. I'm not gonna. I don't want the same sound to scream on top of the big band that I want to play. The Artunian with a wind ensemble, or even. And separately from that, if I were to play some other stuff, just duo with piano, I'd want, and depending on the space that I'm in, it's like you got to dress for the occasion, right? And I feel like it's exactly that with the horn. So I was this way before I owned my own company, but like now, there are.
What have you done?
What have I done? I was just going to turn around. I messed up my mouse.
Oh, you're good.
I was turning around to look at my mouthpieces here, and really, even right now, just with the limited uh, perspective of like, okay, I'm preparing for these. I'm going to record this coming up. I need to do this. I have a couple of specific musical tasks at hand, recordings I need to make, and just narrowing it down to what I need in order to do those jobs. I already, there are like 5 or 6 mouthpieces that I might turn to depending on which horn, and I'm pretty limited in terms of horns right now. I just had to sell a couple off. And I'm waiting for my own lead solo to come in. So I'm limited now. I've now in the equation, a constant is this silver flare, which has its own particular EQ, characteristics. In fact, this horn specifically scoops out the nasality that we were just talking about. Exactly.
Okay, I have a good question for you. So you have an inner hearing projection that tells you input a sound right into the world in your mind. You say this musical job requires this sound.
It doesn't start with a concept. It's more just like analyzing in the moment, like, oof, there aren't enough highs in this for me to feel like I can more easily project on top
okay. But how you make a decision on something, you're hearing a sound that you want to make over the top of a band.
Yeah.
Because then you can make a judgment, right, between what's coming out and what you're actually hearing.
Yeah.
So your vision or imagination of what that sound has to be very clear, so that you can then judge based on what you're hearing. Now the question is, how much of it is a manipulation from you, and how much do you ask the horn to help you? Because I imagine you can manufacture a nasal sound on an instrument with a scoop, right? So you really using the instrument to kind of get you closer.
Yeah, but I don't want to. I don't. I want to remain. I want myself to be a constant in the equation.
So the horn is going to do that stuff for you.
Yeah. If I there was one time or I think maybe a couple of times in Blast, I ran out and played the opening hit of Malagueña and realized, oh shit, this isn't my lead piece. This is my big cup. But if you just play. If you play loud enough, you can get any horn or mouthpiece to start getting brassier, which is to say you can start to excite the upper harmonics more, the louder you play, especially if most of it's made out of brass. If you're
I find yellow brass, if I just do all yellow brass, it just lights up real quick. Is that right?
Yeah. Exactly, and the more you start dipping into having parts made of bronze or a higher copper content in the brass, gold brass, red brass, then you end up having to play louder in order to get that same amount of sizzle. So I just had to play really freaking loud, and also kind of get my tongue even further up to sort of narrow the airway and
nasal it a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Or if I'm playing say. Maria, the Maynard version of Maria, where I know that I want to do that on a lead piece because I want fireworks when I go into the upper register, but I also don't want to sound like a dickhead when I'm playing the opening part in the low register. Don't want to sound like a high school student playing the lead. Yeah. So I can broaden. I'll drop my larynx, and basically I'll do this inside of my body. I'll change my. You can hear the results in my voice as well. But so I'll drop that and maybe open up a little bit. Use a more open oral cavity than I would otherwise to give more oomph to that sound.
To compensate for the mouthpiece.
Yes, exactly. To compensate. It's like to do my part in an equation where that mouthpiece works for the job.
I understand. That makes sense.
And, somebody like Marquise Hill plays on a surprisingly shallow mouthpiece, but and you wouldn't think that such a beautiful lyrical jazz soloist would go with such a shallow mouthpiece. But the thing is that he also really likes to have that smoky, airy sound. And that's very easy to accomplish with a lead mouthpiece. The hard thing to do is make a lead mouthpiece sound like a proper, sound at least like a D cup, if not a C cup. So, it's all fashion for me. And
you can get that kind of Till Brunner air pretty easy on a lead mouthpiece.
Yeah,
and you don't get the core that Till gets.
Right.
You don't get that bottom end, but you can get the air. You can kind of make it a little easier. I actually find it harder to get that till sound on a big mouthpiece, but
Right. Ditto. And and then also with the conversation takes, there's a fork in the road there. Are we talking about the results in an acoustic setting or when you're playing a microphone? Because
don't even.
You can, if there's just a smidgen of 500K in there, you can 500 hertz. You can just boost that and all of a sudden manufacture a sound. You can get any sound you want playing into a microphone. So really, my judgments are based on what would be the result in an acoustic setting.
That makes sense. I developed some trumpet for a short period of time with BNS, and we explored sterling silver lead pipes. And we went, red brass, gold brass, yellow brass, or coppery, more copper, down to, all the way up to sterling silver. And as soon as we put the sterling silver on, the horn, it had that air, the sizzle, with less nasalness. So we kind of we managed to get the sound taller. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or broader. Yeah.
Yeah, but brighter, but then not harsh. It was very cool.
It's got a lovely quality. Yeah. I've only had one of our horns with a silver lead pipe, but that's definitely something we're doing a lot more. I mean, it's expensive to do. We're talking few $100 just in the material.
Do you guys drill them out, or are they wrapped?
No. The one that we tried in silver was drawn.
Yeah. I don't know what the proper engineering things.
I mean, that would cost thousands. You can't work with silver rod. Insanity.
You'd be catching all of the filaments and then melting them down again.
Right.
How long have you got, man?
Oh, I'm good. We're good.
You're good? Okay. Well, I want to go. This is going to be interesting conversation. This will be definitely a trumpet players podcast for listening, because it got quite trumpety.
Deep into the weeds. Have we closed all the open loops? I can't. I'm
looking on my little notes I got here. I've got big throat. Do you have a different sound concept to other players?
Do you feel like you got enough of an answer for me on those things? Like, you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I mean, and there's always time for another pod if we need to answer some questions, I imagine. But
that I've actually successfully accomplished the mission of
I appreciate it. I mean, a lot of this comes down to the subjective qualities and what the task is required, and actually what your job is. I think one of the questions I had for you when we first got on the phone was, it's not a case of transcending anything, so no one don't expect that's what I'm harking on about here. But there's a sort of tradesman style trumpet playing job, and then there's an artistic side to it too.
Yep.
And I've always found myself massively stuck in between the two, to the point of not committing to either, playing really trumpets that really fight me doing my thing, and then so that I'm consistently playing the same horn across, and then finding myself playing horns that help me maybe on my thing in environments in a tradesman scenario where they want just an anonymous trumpet sound, which I think we can all. I could say that the most trumpet sounding trumpet is a bark trumpet, purely if you look at the number of people that play them. That is the sound that is most trumpety if you ask what a trumpet sounds like. That doesn't mean it's the most desirable by different people or not.
Is there do you just categorically just Bach, or is there a particular?
I'd say 37 is probably the sound of a trumpet, to be fair, right? Just statistically. So if you have a producer that has a really specific sound for, or not even that specific, I want a generic trumpet sound for this fanfare. What they are likely to be hearing in their head is Bach 37 from 50 feet, right?
Sure.
So I guess I'm just talking a little around this point, but what are your views on artistic choices versus tradesman mentality?
Again, just dress for the occasion. And we've got two models on the menu, the classic and the universal, that are both based on the 37 bell. We've optimized for intonation, yada yada, but it's roundabout. It's definitely in the same ballpark where the classic is kind of, well, the universal, which has a phosphor bronze bell flare, is more, like a souped up, a beefy 37 sound, like with a bit more ooh mixed in. And the classic is like a 37 star, if you will, so
Okay.
it's thinner gauge bell, all yellow brass, one piece. They both have the same geometry, and they're both my contribution to the conversation of what an optimal trumpet, generic trumpet sound could or should be. Do you want the sort of, thicker, richer version, which is like Gerard Presenter is playing on that, is on the Universal, for instance.
Yeah.
Or the brighter, which Ryan Kaiser was playing on prior to switching to the lead solo.
Yeah.
And so I dig the 37. I think is you're right. I agree with you that's the generic ideal of roundabout what somebody doing sort of a typical job that that's known for a trumpet player, what kind of sound they would have. I've always fancied myself a soloist, always.
Okay, that goes back to my question here. Do you have a different sound concept to most players?
Yeah.
So you were
no,
you would say objectively the trumpet sound of a 37 is that's the sound that people will. So for you, that's not the right sound.
Yeah, too small for and in that.
And can you define small? Can you define?
It's not even about sound. It's not about because I love the results I can get recording on those horns. It's about the acoustic projection. It's just not wide enough for me. It's a very directional, comparatively speaking.
Very directional, yeah, for sure.
Trumpets are extremely directional. If the performer's moving around and you're in the audience, if they're not pointing your way, you're getting far less of their presence than you would otherwise if they're pointing at you. I want a horn to sound the same no matter where you're sitting in the audience. I
never considered that.
That is one beautiful quality that rubbed off on me from being a fan of some Monette players like Wynton and Terrence, that you have an intimate connection with their sound sitting at the back, whether you're center or all the way to the left or right. And it's the difference between playing a trumpet in a space or playing the space with your trumpet. And I want that operatic quality of filling the space and giving you that that really close up, intimate connection to my sound, because I'm like, it's there. And the only way you can do that, both with regard to trumpets and speakers, is if the cones are wide enough to allow for that kind of a spread to happen. So I want an extremely wide spray. I don't want something that's directional. And by nature of that shape of the 37, it is going to be directional no matter what you do, no matter what material you choose for the end of the flare, no matter how big you make the final diameter. That you can open it up.
I had not considered the soloist element of this enough. That makes a lot of sense. I think that will be the biggest takeaway for me, is just to consider that the whole audience gets the experience if there's no microphone.
Yeah. And even in a situation where you're mic'd up and you're playing in a big band, of course, if there's a PA involved, people are going to hear you no matter what. But there's a difference between, like, for instance, your the night that you proposed to your wife, I was there front row center, well, standing room, but I was right there, front and center. And your sound, of course, was coming out of the speakers, but I was way closer to you than I was to the speakers. So I was hearing you acoustically. Now, imagine somebody that's only 4 meters back and 4 meters over to the side. They're still closer to you than they are to the PA, but they're not directly in your line of fire. So they're going to get way less than I got. And
I was on a 37 that night. It was tough. It was tough.
I can imagine, because also the 37s are a little bit, they're a bit thicker gauge. They don't light up as easily as a lighter horn would. Which is, I guess, if I were to play a 37, I would choose for it to go as light as possible with all the. Anyway, neither here nor there. So if you want to be heard by the PA, that's one thing. That's between you and the sound guy to determine what your sound is going to be, how much, what kind of EQing he's doing, what kind, what's going on, and also what kind of compression. How much is your soft sound being projected? Do you have to play loud even though you're playing into a microphone still in order to be heard, or is there enough compression on it so that you can back off and just get to a whisper sound, and it's still going to project on top of the big band during a ballad? So there's that element involved. But I want, even if there's a PA involved, I want people to go, God damn, I can hear him louder than I can, I get more coming from his bell than I do coming from the PA. And I'm right in front of the PA. I want people to feel my sound coming from me, no matter where they are, period.
So the overdrive on a directional trumpet could be a subconscious response to the ambience of the acoustic that you're in,
totally,
making you push for something unnecessarily.
Oh, especially if it's too dry or you're not getting enough. Even if the room sounds pretty good, but the stage is super dry, you'll find yourself playing louder than necessary in order to produce something that you feel like it's necessary, but actually we were getting you just fine in the house, so that you didn't need to. There are so many circumstances where
this is something I struggle with a lot, especially in this dead room in here. Massive problem of, well, I'm playing pretty directional horns.
Yep.
Maybe they just need to be used for the right, for that tool, rather than
when you're playing into a mic.
Yeah.
And you don't, and the acoustic projection is a non-issue. So basically, that is to say, if you're recording. If you're in a studio, it doesn't matter. But if you're playing live, and that's why I designed the lead solo. That's and the reason why Ryan Kaiser actually switched to it and didn't look back is because it has the same tone quality as the classic, as that bright 37. It's got, when you give it a little bit of gas, man, it's got sharp teeth and claws, but it's got like 115 teeth on top and bottom instead of 20. It's enormous, but it's that same quality of sound, and yet it's everywhere all at once. And for Ryan to play in a section where he's right next to Winton, who's always on he's driving a Hummer SUV, a Hummer limo, and then Kenny's got a larger than average bell that's copper, if I'm not mistaken, a Del Quadro. And then, Marcus has for many years been playing on a Silver Flare, also a large bell, and a big broad sound. So it makes sense for Ryan to play lead on a horn that has a bell that starts out mostly like a 37, but then has a fatter open throat and is just bigger at the end, because it's like taking the shotgun and sawing it off. And now your shot goes everywhere. It makes a lot of sense for him, because he's, his sound is in competition with 3 other trumpets that up until this point, up until he started playing an elite solo, were far less directional than his. So, just naturally, he's hearing more of himself, because the wider you open up and it just makes sense.
That's something I struggle with a lot. It's just even hearing myself, I think I have a directional sound anyway, on top of a directional horn. In concept, in self concept, or just as the result? I mean, your mouthpiece is also giving you a very directional sound. Well, then all of those things, yeah.
All roads in your world lead to directional sound, which is fine if you're pointing into a mic, and it's not acoustic. You're trying to be heard on top of a brass band with a whole percussion section and all that. That's a different story altogether.
Very interesting.
And you'll find yourself fighting to achieve something that would be so much more easily achieved, even if you do it, even if you're successful in getting the volume, just putting out pure decibels enough to get yourself on top of the ensemble. What it costs you, it may be, far, far more than necessary. And with a horn like the lead solo, which is light and bright, but just big in its projection, without giving any extra, it's got the same amount of resistance and all that as like a 37. It's just right at the very end, beyond the point where you actually measure the length of the horn, where intonation is affected. Just beyond that point, it just opens up a bit more.
Well, 37's definitely, I'm not playing one at the moment, but they're definitely, I find them stuffy. It fights. I feel like I'm fighting it a little bit. But maybe that brings us on to I'm going to say this is the last piece, because I got to go into the academy in a minute and do a little chops o'clock session here. So we'll now It's really nice. I love playing with the guys there. It's fun. So I've got written here. We talked a little bit about earlier on. The lead players are going to want resistance
Mhm.
to push against. Now, one of the things that I've struggled with is a neck hernia for a long time in my life, and it's hurt. It hurt over the last 5 years. It stopped hurting, which is
Great.
amazing.
Yeah.
But it has got bigger too. Now, obviously, I'm feeling resistance and I'm pushing against it, right?
Yeah.
Now, the question I want to know is, what do you concept? What does support mean to you? We had a guy come into my trumpet academy to talk about. His name was Manuel, a music fitness coach. And he came and had a conversation with everyone about air and about the abs.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you pushing when you're engaging? Like, where are you doing it? How do you feel that you're doing it the correct way? If I watch a video of you, it looks a particular way, but I want to see how you describe it before I comment. And when you think of compressing air, how much is too much resistance? And I feel like I could overpower the trumpet to the point where the backup point would be in my neck anyway. So why is that happening? And am I pushing from the right place? If I'm pushing, what should I do?
Right. Yeah, that's a series of very good questions. And it comes down to taste for sure, but how you want, and again, coming back to, I want to be able to go, or, I want unencumbered access to everything at all times, upper register, lower register, everything. And I want it to feel, if it weren't for the, so God, there's so many, I have to compress so many thoughts into this answer. Okay.
A lot of variables, you're saying.
Yeah. I need to preface this with the way that I play is I provide a minimal amount of air pressure from my abs. And I don't describe, and I don't feel what could be described as pushing anywhere, anytime. I'm pulling in my belly button, and I'm lengthening my abdominal wall. And so, trying to get my top and bottom abs to be really quite far apart, which is exactly the opposite of what I started doing when I was a kid, which is just, basically a standing crunch, in order to compress. And that was...
So explain that more then. So your abdominal wall goes up and you pull your belly button in.
Yeah. I mean, think of the old school wrestlers, how they would stand. They'd suck in their gut and, puff out their chest. That's it. That's superhero posture. And in a nutshell, and in pulling in your abdominal wall, basically. But I focus my attention on the belly button because that's kind of dealing with the lower abs, the ones that are not connected to any ribs, to your floating ribs. The upper abdominals are connected to your floating ribs, and as soon as you, so you can roughly see the outline of my floating ribs here, and so these are my upper abs. And as soon as you squeeze the abs, the floating ribs really come in, and that drastically reduces the size of your lung capacity. Or if your lungs are already full, then it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on, from outside onto your lungs. So this is the turbo button, and to be used very, very sparingly. Whereas if you just pull in your belly button, you're engaging your lower abdomen, and that already provides enough air pressure, enough pressure to come up to the tongue, which is where the magic really happens. There's an arch in my tongue. The high part of the arch is a certain distance away from the roof of my mouth, and that is the final point of resistance within me, where I control the amount of air and its speed, as it exits past my lips. And there's a huge difference in that, I guess I have to mention it because without mentioning it, it might get lost on some people that I don't use my lips to control any of the qualities of my air, except for which direction it enters the mouthpiece. The determination of how much air is made at the high part of the arch of my tongue. The how fast is it going is a combination of the amount of abdominal support that I've provided, the amount of squeezing that I've put onto my airbag, and then once it reaches that arch, that's like putting your thumb over the hose and turning a meager amount of air pressure into a lot of air pressure. I'm creating a venturi, and on the other end of the venturi comes a really fast speed of air. So I'm controlling how much air and how fast it's going with the arch in my tongue. And then the rest of the shape of the tongue is also kind of forming the EQ, if you will, just like we use this zone for controlling vowel pronunciation. Vowel pronunciation, when you utilize that same mechanism, it translates into EQ. And so it's the difference between and I'm doing glissandos all the way up and down my range right there. And it's I just want it to feel that easy. I want playing the trumpet to be, a variable that can or doesn't need to connect to me. And I can still demonstrate on my end how it should feel. Like there shouldn't be any struggle. I just want to go. Like I want it to be that easy. And so I choose the equipment. I choose lots and lots of variables to fit together into a good equation that gives me that kind of easy access. And that means a moderate throat size that's perhaps larger than the one you're playing on, but far tighter than what Winton's playing on. I assume I'm not fanning out on his details. I've kind of stopped paying attention to Monette's work altogether. But something porridge that's just right, just there in the middle. Same goes for resistance in the horn. I just want a moderate amount of, if it's too open, if it's too big and open, then I'm going to get diminishing returns in the upper register in terms of my access and control. I can play deep mouthpieces with enormous throats and go into the upper register, but getting it to sizzle, getting it to sparkle, I'd have to just play too hard in order to get, I want to be able to get every tone quality required in every moment of the music I'm playing without having to step on the gas and do the extra thing on my end in order to get the results I'm looking for. So I will look to a lead mouthpiece when it's time to play a lead mouthpiece, because it'll make it that much easier for me to get that excited sound without having to play louder and harder. And then when it's just balladeering time and I don't have a huge ensemble to play over, it's just me and a piano, and you can really hear everything that's coming out of my bell, then I'll go for a deep ass cup with a big open throat and made out of wood, like and there are no roadblocks. There's nothing making it more difficult than necessary for me to get that sound out there to you. And so it really all just depends on the musical situation. But anyway, in all cases, I want my job to be easy. And so I try to, I design equipment and I choose which of that equipment I play on personally based on it giving me that as good of a balance, as good of a compromise as there can ever be, because it's all a compromise at all times, but the amount of effortlessness versus the output that I'm getting, how loud it is, how easy it is to play loud, how easy it is to get the bright stuff, how easy it is to have warm, creamy ooh hugging you. In any given moment, I'm choosing the equipment that says, okay, this is going to give you as easy a feeling as you're looking for in your body, and provide you with that sound that you're looking for. I used to be like every other player that typically just says, I'm willing to sacrifice myself on the altar of the trumpet gods in order to, get the result that I'm looking for. But I really don't subscribe to any particular sound that I'm looking to make. And given the nature of my work and how different it is on any given day, what kind of ensemble I'm playing with, how many people I'm playing with, there's definitely no one mouthpiece or one horn that's going to fit all occasions. I do design things to be well-rounded. Like the lead solo is my answer to, if there were one trumpet to rule them all, one trumpet that Ryan Kaiser could play, you could play, and Philip Dizak or Winton or somebody on a with a very different concept of sound. Both of them have different concepts of sound, which is why I threw out their two names. They're both in the same field, but with wildly different sounds. If there were one horn that you could probably with the right mouthpiece get what you're looking for, it would be, I think, the lead solo, something somewhat around a 37 in general. And that's really, very, very general. But at least in terms of the shape of the bell, until you get to the very end and then spread it out nice and wide. Make a horn that's very light and easy to spark very easily. That can be creamy, especially if you pop in the bronze tuning slide and use perhaps a bronze mouthpiece. It can be. You can always make a bright horn sound darker, but you can't get a brick to light up. So.
Yeah,
so,
I hear that.
Yeah,
before.
and the way that I play is I have chosen the technique that makes it the easiest, where I have the fewest moving parts involved in getting the results I'm looking for. So not needing to consider where in space am I pivoting right now? How much have I pivoted too much? How much inward pressure am I using right now? Is this enough inward pressure or too much inward pressure? Those are things that aren't built, they're not baked into I don't use inward pressure, and I try not to pivot. If I haven't been playing much and I settle into like bad habits, then I'll find myself doing some pivoting. But if I'm being truly honest and standing in front of the mirror, the game I like to play with myself is pretend that I'm looking at a photo of myself and not actually watching myself in the mirror, and becoming acutely aware if there's anything anywhere that changes, and I'll, first notes of the day, but and I become aware that there are some facial muscles that move, but it's it's mostly just because I bring. Oh God, I am really opening up so many topics of conversation right now, aren't I? There is some movement. I'm not saying that I'm a statue when I play, but I'm very aware of keeping the movement to a minimum, and that I never sign a contract with the devil saying, okay, just I'm going to use some inward pressure. It's going to get me to the end of this tune or the end of the solo. I don't do that, because after you've done that, you're in the recovery time takes longer. You've stepped into unhealthy territory. So there are a lot of things that I've taken out of the equation of my technique, and I've just got it really down to using a minimal amount of pressure, just nothing more than just a simple laugh in terms of what I'm doing in my torso, and then feeding that to the thumb over the hose that makes the difference between that like wildly increases the speed of that air and infuses it with tone quality that then enriches the sound that I get from the horn. So it's really, really all about creating the right air quality. And the only way that I was able to be able to dance and do acrobatics and do wild stuff while playing is making it so that my body has very little to do. There are very few muscles that need to be flexed. I'm flexing between my shoulder blades to keep my chest open and easily filled up, and to carry the weight of the horn. I keep that there. I have 2 herniated discs just above my sacrum, so I have a very difficult time like bending over, doing any kind of crunch things. I can still do back bends and wheels and all that, but the nature of the hernias is that I can't compress. So if I find myself playing, like an asshole, that if I, even just in a quick little demonstration, I feel that like I just got a flag waved, like, hey, don't move in that direction. So that ended up being a blessing in disguise. It really kept me honest. It made me realize that my technique was better 20 years ago. That when I was in black, when I was actually dancing and acting the fool while playing, I was more aware of staying long. And, most of my playing I was doing standing up. In the following, 15, whatever, so years, I've been sitting most of the time and not 100% aware of like really keeping that arch in my lower back and just very easily pulling in my belly button. And I started overdoing it just a little bit, still within a range of I'm still getting the results, and it wasn't killing me. But with the herniated disc, that made it acutely aware, made me aware that like, oh, I need to get back to doing that thing where as I ascend into the upper register, I lift the horn up instead of bringing everything in, like. So most people, kind of go in that direction from the time they're kids, and they never really avoid doubling down every day on that muscle memory, and it becomes such that the abdominal wall is crunching, and in order to stay upright and keep playing the trumpet when you're doing that, you also have to equally flex muscles in the back. Otherwise, you just immediately flip over. Whoa, Zoom is doing some funky things with my camera. Back up. Back it up. They're in.
Pet cam.
But if you just pull in your belly button just a little bit, it supports standing tall, and it's all good. And this is enough. This is enough to get the job done. Even to go, and that's loud. And if I played like that all the time without my in-ears in this cabin, I'd be deaf in a year.
Yeah.
So it's nothing more than that. But the more you start to go, you have to equally go in the back. And if you're flexing all those muscles like that and all the muscles in your back like that, chances are you're also flexing your pecs, your trapezius, your lats, you're flexing everything. And then you can't do shit. Then you're just stuck in the tension trap. And you can work with that. And plenty of amazing players work like that. It's very costly. You know what I mean? And I happened to, through my career, be in a place where I had to be a dancing trumpet player, and like hardcore, not like doing a couple of kick steps. Like Blast was freaking crazy, and where it evolved to far beyond anything that there's video evidence of, because Union Show, there are no recordings. It went to some crazy places, especially in the sequels, and the only way to do that was to become more efficient. And now I just won't settle for anything else. And I wish that I could just make everybody aware of what it feels like, the difference. A lot of folks, most folks have this idea that it is so much harder, that it needs to be so much harder than it is for me, and whereas you look at somebody like Vizzuti and you go like, wow, he makes it look easy, or Nakaryakov, wow, they make it look easy. They're not flexing a whole bunch of muscles, and so there are examples of folks who don't construct a manner of playing that's built on tension. And Vizzuti, Nakaryakov, and I are three wildly different examples of what you can accomplish when you don't build your technique on a platform of tension. Yeah. So it's really that's the only limitation that most people, I think, butt up against is their ability to let stuff go. Like your ability to consciously say, no, okay, I want to be able to jiggle my pecs while I play. So, and this is the only arm I'm holding the horn in. There is no tension. Same deal. I can jiggle my triceps and my biceps while I play. So I'm carrying the weight of the horn between my shoulder blades, and I would assume that both of those guys also do the same thing. So I'm not alone in this, but I guess I'm trying to describe it in a more thorough or at least distinct way, and try to get to it in very clear black and white physiological descriptive terms. Don't flex a bunch of muscles, just like leave yourself in your whole, carry yourself in a way that would make yourself as tall as can possibly be, suck in your gut and whistle your way to success. But that's not the reality. That's not what most players are doing. So if we zoom out and look at the big equation, forget mouthpieces and trumpets, how do you use your body? And what is your base level? What is your expectation? Conceptually, and also where is your muscle memory at in terms of which pathways are available to you. Once muscle memory becomes deeply ingrained enough, most people can't even get out of it, can't circumvent their muscle memory and experiment with playing a different way. So in my case, I had to throw away all my muscle memory. I had to I brought it back down to just like playing downward glissandos on a mouthpiece for like weeks on end. and nothing but. While I was in blast, I had to do that. I realized that that all my drum corps days of, I mean, it was going to kill me. Eventually, I was just going to just not be able to do my job.
Would you recommend people practice while doing like marching and dancing if they can, just to diagnose, if anything?
Well, I meof I recommend somebody. It's a tough recommendation to get somebody into drum corps or marching band because lots of trade-offs there.
Yeah, that's not a culture we have here in the UK. So
right. And it's not as musical a culture as the musical culture you have in large group activities, which is brass band, where you get to really play some music. So you don't join drum corps for the musicality of it, but the physical education and the mental training. I mean, I'm a warrior. I was trained to be a warrior from the time I was 14. A fucking warrior. Like I can. Whatever we can withstand. Those of us who successfully even accomplish 1 year of drum corps, let alone 7, are true athletes, like Olympic level athletes. And then going on to blast and doing another 7 years of that, and really, I mean, we were talking 3-hour dance classes, 3-hour acting classes. I mean, it turned us into serious athletes. And so I feel like if there were a trumpet Olympics, I would have some gold medals. I've earned them. And that's just looking at how those folks train and how they prepare and what the challenges are. And, I've put myself on stage in moments when I could have absolutely shit the bed, and I sort of do set myself up in that way to, like, it's slip and die, and there's no getting back on either. It's like, do or die. And I've been a bit of a daredevil about that. And that's baked into part of that culture I came from with drum corps about, in order to get the most emotional effect out of the audience, they need to feel like it's dangerous. Like there's not a guarantee that you're not going to fuck it up,
that makes sense. Yeah.
And so I build that into my repertoire in general. So I put myself on a very fine line. It's a tightrope where I can't falter in the way I use my body. I can't let myself get back into the playing with too much tension, because I would fail at my job. And now my herniated discs won't even allow me to do that anyway. There's nothing but proper posture happening 24/7. The way I pick up my daughter, the way I'm a squatting man. I squat more. So anyway, coming back to, do I recommend that people do marching or dancing? Not necessarily, but I do recommend that you play while doing squats and standing on one leg. There's the old Maynard thing about when you go to play your ta-da note, getting up on one leg to do it, like, because in doing so, if you get up onto one leg in order to play that ta-da note, you're putting your body in a situation where it supersedes any concept of what you'd like to do on the trumpet. The body just goes to don't fall down.
Yeah.
So
like that.
The priority becomes postural in order to maintain your sense of balance. And so you're not going to do any kind of, if I were to do that ta-da note on one leg and squeeze here too much, all of a sudden, like, now my body is struggling to find its balance. So it really keeps you on point. So it's a very, very interesting. I've played a lot here at home. Here in the cabin, I'll take a chair, put it out so that I've got a little bit more space to work with, and I'll just do. I'm in like grand plie. And just exercising my lower body, which is cut off at the waist. It's irrelevant what's happening and that is what you need to understand as a concept before you can dance or do anything else crazy while you're playing, is that there has to be a separation at the waist, but it's completely irrelevant what you're doing with your legs while your air is being properly supported, which doesn't take much, as I described. And then, the tongue does the rest of the job. You're off to the races, and you can do ballet in your lower body while you're.
It's amazing. My old head of a band that I used to play in, the Sid Lawrence Orchestra, fantastic band. The band leader is a man called Chris Dean, good friend of mine, and he was in I think it's the Irish Guards, and he learned to play on horseback, trombone, trombone on horseback. And the guy's chops are insane, and always perfect posture. Finishes tunes a little bit like Doc Severinsen. Puts the slide in a position, and then like cuts the band off like this, playing on like a high B or whatever it is. Like amazing. Yeah, but I had never considered how good his posture is, and it must be to do with that. That if you're going to learn to play on horseback, then you're going to have to be detached almost from the horse, in a sense.
So the horse or marching both represent, a variable, not a constant. Like you are bouncing in space. Whether it's because of your, you can try to do as good a job with a roll step as possible, but still, there's always going to be some bouncing, and you have to. And obviously on horseback, there's going to be bouncing that's completely outside of your control. The only thing you can do to overcome that and keep that bouncing out of your sound is to literally stretch your upper body, stretch from your butthole to the top of your head, and and never stop stretching. Yeah. And if the stretch is more powerful than you can still be bouncing or doing anything else, and the airstream isn't going to be affected by that. Also, to his credit, in order to be able to play well on horseback, you've got to also get rid of the concept of inward pressure, because inward pressure is typically the first thing that people increase when they start to march, or I imagine when they start playing on horseback, because it's a stabilizing factor. You don't want the horn bouncing around on your face as well. So just push the sucker in towards your teeth, and at least you feel instinctively like that's going to help, but of course it doesn't. And you have to just develop a thicker piece of steak between the mouthpiece and your teeth. Some cushion for all that bouncing that's happening. Wow. So I would imagine that part of his endurance is from that as well. That really rocking the outward stretch of your entire embouchure.
Awesome, man. Hey, look, I'm gonna have to go to Chops O'Clock in a minute here. I have absolutely loved that conversation. That's one of the most in-depth trumpet conversations I've had with anyone in my life. And thank you for sharing so much. Thank you for your honesty, especially with the beginning conversation we had about everything that's going on in the world of Adam Rapa. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about becoming a father and how that's affected the trumpet playing, but maybe we'll save that for another podcast.
Sure. I'm happy to be a repeat offender with you. This is great. You're very, very fun to talk with. And thank you. And I feel almost a little bit like in a normal flowing conversation, I would be asking you about you as well. So,
yeah, well, it's
enough about me. Let's talk about you. How do you feel about me?
You have a lot to say on the horn, and the world needs to hear it. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And when are you next coming over to the UK? Do you have a plan?
No plans, but cheap flights are abundant here between the north of Spain and the UK. So any invitation, any occasion, I'm happy to travel over. I might be going up to Norwich to do some more R&D with Matt Martin to make some more stuff before the end of the year. If so, I'll get in touch.
Please.
But also if you can think of any, I mean, even if you just, it wouldn't even take much to get me to come over and hang in person with you. So
cool. All right, bud. It sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much.
If nothing else, we can keep doing this. This is like I said, I'm not far away from launching an educational program of my own that sort of helps guide people through the transition necessary in order to get rid of that tension, blah blah blah, and also other things, broader conversations, things that we've talked about, and general music stuff and whatever. It's time for me to actually get down to it and like be an educator. I've been sort of avoiding that as well too for a while, because there's the master clinician thing. It's just a one shot. You can deliver as much information to people as you like, but if you're not there to help them go through,
seems to be the big thing I'm realizing, is it's all well and good giving the information out, but it needs to be there needs to be a journey with it.
Yes, exactly. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I don't make time. I've come around to the whole being a dad thing. I won't go on for long about it, but especially now, I don't have time. I'm not a consumer of anything trumpet, let alone, much of anything these days, a little bit of, 1 hour TV at the end of the night with my wife or something like that. But, so I'm not following the conversations that you're having and feel a little bit bad about that. But I know from the conversations that we've had that what it is that you're doing is obviously going to be healthy and positive. So I'd love to contribute to that in any way I can. And there's probably going to be a lot of room for collaborative efforts. So.
Love it. Gonna be awesome. All right, bud. Thank you so much. And Adam Rapa. All the best.
Take care, man.